Okay, good morning. We can start the second day of Can you please confirm if at Holguín, Camagüey, Santa Clara, and Pinar we have connection? Because based on the information on the GXC room, we have no connection from everywhere. Can you please check that at the universities? Okay, to make a summary of the yesterday's session and also to explain a little bit how we are going to work today, which is the same format that we used yesterday, and also the format we will use tomorrow. We will have a panel session at the beginning. Then we will have a discussion by groups. Those are the two main moments of the morning. Then we will have a break, of course, for lunch. And then at 2:30, we come back here to this room to have the second part of the plenary. At that moment, we will have a brief summary of the work done by groups in the morning, okay? And we will close the session, the afternoon session, also like we did yesterday, with some comments and some opinions from the experts related with the work of the groups, okay? Today we are hoping to have more groups because yesterday we had 3 partner universities with no electricity, and unfortunately we couldn't have them attending the session of yesterday virtually. And that's why we are hoping that today all of the partner universities can attend the 2 sessions of today and be able also to do the group discussion locally, okay? If we have that situation, which is the one we want to have, we will have more than the groups that we are going to work here, okay? Then As we said yesterday, here and in the other rooms we are going to work when we split in groups. There is only one person who can be online, and that connection has to be the one in the computer to be used as the host for all of the groups, okay? And here it is the same. No one from the mobile or from a laptop or from another kind of device can be connected, otherwise it will be a sound loop, and then we will have a lot of noise in the connection. We are live? Are we live? Are we live now?
Yes, we are live.
Please, the focal points. Finally, all the universities are online. Again, can the universities locally can change the name of the connection to be easier for us to identify the institutions, the partner universities in the connection, please? Can you advise the local delegations to do that? Otherwise, it will be difficult for us to identify. Based on the names of the connections there is no local university connected. Okay, Marc, if it is possible, can you show the program of today? Okay, then today, as we will have a session related with the interoperability of information at the institutional level. Remember that yesterday we had a session related with policies for open science and open education in the higher education context in Cuba. And also we had fortunately a lot of experiences from the experts related with that topic, but coming from another context, and that was a very good exchange of information with them to realize in the Cuban context that we have some problems that are the same outside the country, and at the same time that we are facing problems that we can solve using any of the solutions that were described yesterday, okay? As we explained yesterday, today and tomorrow we will have a session related with interoperability. The only difference is that today we want to concentrate at the institutional levels, okay, and tomorrow we want to extend that view of interoperability in relation with external platforms, not only in Cuba, but abroad, okay? Then also we explained yesterday that it doesn't matter that we cannot talk about policies today and tomorrow, and at the same time we realized yesterday that we started talking about interoperability since yesterday morning, okay? Because the three topics are really related. It is not possible to talk about policies if we do not take into account the infrastructure and the IT support that the development and the implementation of policies for open science and open education are only possible if we also have the infrastructure, the management procedures already ready for that, okay? And at the same time, yesterday there was the two groups discussions talked also about interoperability, because they realized also that the interoperability among the applications supporting open science and open education, it's something tie related to the concrete implementation of the policies for the embracement of the open science and open education approach, okay? Then, the conclusion is that today we will concentrate in interoperability of information at the institutional level, but of course, the topics of policies, the topics of strategies to implement open science and open education will be also part of the discussion, okay? But we try to concentrate today in the interoperability of information at the institutional level. That's why in the program you will see that we are having three main moments in the morning session, or in the first part of the morning session, before going to the groups for discussion, okay? First of all, we will have a presentation by our coordinator of the project ELINF from the Flemish side, Marc Goovaerts, to introduce the topic we want to talk about today. And after that, we will have two presentations, one making a relation between people of UCLV or people of the university where we are right now, to really put some examples of the work done at the project on the implementation of platforms related with open science and open, to support open science and open education. And then we will have a second example from the University of Las Villas, also as an example of the implementation in different platforms related with the topic we are working today. Then we will have the expert panel, okay, with some of the experts you can see there. Unfortunately, we cannot have all of the plan experts, but most of them are right now here, and then we can have the panel immediately. And after that, we will have the session or the group for discussion. And remember, as we did yesterday, during the presentation of Marc of both of our universities and during the expert panel, we will have at the end a short list of questions that will be used as a guidance for the discussion in the groups, okay? Then that's the plan for today. Then I will give you, Marc, the possibility to do his presentation. Thank you very much.
It's a PDF. It's a PDF. And what's the application I use to show the obvious question? Yes, look at the PDF 20. Okay, yes, you can choose that window. No, before you have to share this. No, you are also sharing. You are still sharing. Yes. Okay. So,
everybody. We will do it in English, so you can...
Mark, can you ask if the people are seeing the presentation?
Okay. Hola, en Holguín, Camagüey, las otras universidades. ¿Es posible de ver la presentación? Okay.
Let's see the chat.
Yes. Good morning. Okay, we have seen each other already a few days for a lot of people, and since yesterday for the larger group here. And simply a little introduction about the ideas that has been developed in the last 10 years in the project. Huh? So you can go to the next. It's sometimes easier. Huh? So you know already, many of these here know this page that in the end ELINF has been working on a whole platform of different applications on the level of the universities. Huh? To create a virtual educational network, to install information management systems, library and information management systems, research information systems. There is also a component that we are not touching today about English, but the idea is to bring that together first on the level of policies that we discussed yesterday, and besides that, also to integrate these information silos together. So one approach is that we are working with free and open source software solutions, and Manuel and Lorena will explain a bit more about it later, but in anyway, we started with Moodle DSpace ABCD. ABCD now is, we are looking for replacing it by VIVO. ABCD, even before the start of the project, was accepted by the ministry as a library solution, but it's the context here in Cuba makes it difficult, and we have to find other solutions. Also, to manage research information, VIVO was also chosen. VIVO by itself is supporting the free and open source software approach, and that is completely implemented in the project. So a little bit the context, because it's about integrating information, and so it's good to look at some of the concepts. And important, what is metadata? It's data about data, and it's basically descriptive data, as Duval explained it in 2001. Also a very important concept is authority control here. We have to use a common approach, and therefore authority control is very relevant. And that's to elements which are very important when we talk about structured information. And then interoperability, it's that when information is originated in one context, it is difficult sometimes to combine it with another context. And we see that in our project very well because we are in an educational environment, we are in a library environment, we are in a research environment. So on that level, each has its own approach. But to work on interoperability, you need agreements between those different approaches. And one of the elements is surely that unique identifiers are an element to use for that. So we use different platforms, we use different systems, and you already see that in the library world, the MARC format is very common. It's in fact a standard of the 60s, which is even before SQL was developed. So in a way, not really always the easiest standard to work with. But anyway, in the library world, it's a standard. DSpace was used for repositories and in fact uses a very simple metadata format. It's the qualified Dublin core. You can make it larger, but in the end, you are still always on a two-level metadata format. But it's using that format, and at the moment, some universities are moving to the version 7. I think in UCLV, in other universities, I don't know how far you are, but we will hear maybe during the presentations later. Okay, the next. When we are working with VIVO, we worked with linked data ontologies. And VIVO, people know it here from the project, it's a system to manage research information. And finally, the Moodle is working with educational information and uses for a large part LOM, also Dublin core is used in Moodle. So in the end, you see these platforms have their own, you can go to the next, have their own approach. Different metadata formats and ontologies are used in the end. And okay, they have their reasons, because you have specific targets with it. So it's not really possible to create a unique approach in the end. And the question is how to exchange metadata from one platform to another. That's about shared conventions about that. So we worked further, maybe Faber, the next one. We worked further to look at what is similar in the different metadata formats. And in the end, basically, we saw at minimum 3 elements which are the same: people, organization, and keywords. And on that level, it is clear that standardization is necessary if you want to bring information together, if you want to exchange over the different platforms. So it is in the end necessary to look how in the different platforms, in LOM, in Qualified Dublin Core, in ontologies, in Mark 21, you define people and where you can define them uniquely. These are two examples about the people and about keywords. So in the end, it was 2015, I think, that this reference model was first developed, where we looked how to build up our information silos in an ecosystem. And very important is that you identify over the different platforms in the same way people. The people and the organizations and the descriptions. And in the end, where is this information available? Mostly in the learning environment. People will, as a student, as a teacher, you go to the learning environment, but still you get to have this information also from the other aspects. And on the researchers will go to the research platform. So we have different approaches on that, different entries to information which has to be integrated. So, Faber, next. And we used, we put, in fact, where the softwares that we are using for these different levels, and with cross-cutting elements, policies are also important to realize. So, based on these ideas, it evolved. We had different discussions about how to realize this integration. At a certain moment, there was a proposal to work with a bus solution where all the information is translated before it is reused again. Now, this was also not always that practical, and so we came to this interoperability model. It's still a model in development in the end. It's clear that in the first place, the first layer is these authority systems. And in the meantime, also a very important development was the development of the SEBA platform, which helped us a lot. But anyway, where do we find information for identifying people? That's in the LDAPs of the universities, in the ORCIDs, but in Cuba we have a database that contains information on national level about researchers, and that's assets. On the other level, we have SEBA, which is also trying to grab the information from ORCID and so on. And the idea was also to look a little bit at the citizen ID there. Anyway, and Rafael, I think already there are some developments on that intermediate tools to bring all the information together. I don't know how far the realizations are, but today or tomorrow you can tell more about it. Anyway, this is an important layer. The same thing is that there has been development in the project about authority management system Authoritas. At the same time, the SEBA project uses Cosmos. So on other aspects, we have also already some developments in the development of the authority systems. So because it is important that library system, educational system, investigation system are exchanging information. And one way is probably to translate all the information to triple stores that can be reused, and that also can be used by other harvesters, other systems. This is, sorry, still before the previous. Yes, okay, thank you. We put a repository a bit aside in the idea that repository and quiz are overlapping, and repository and library system are overlapping, because in the end, a repository, in my opinion, should be limited to contain the full text open access approach. And all the richer information should be more in the other systems. Because for two reasons. Otherwise, repositories will be used as a quiz systems, and then you have an overlapping on tasks. And on the other hand, by doing that, it will be a tool that is not really enhancing the open access. Because I see that in many universities, they don't care about the full text, they care about the management of the output when they use a repository as a very rich tool. So you have this information in other platforms. Why do you do that? Why do you use it in the repository? Okay, this is a little bit the model that is in development, and SEDA, we will talk about it tomorrow. Rafael and Yohannis, who is not here, but is a very important development in that. The next, so a little bit to talk about, so I already talked about that. Okay, we can go further, we don't have to go deeper in that. And what have been the installations? We have these things, VIVO, Moodle, installed in many universities, ABCD in different levels. There has been some problems of using the latest version developed here at UCI. But anyway, the SPI development is on its way. Autoritas is there. ORCID support has been integrated in Moodle, and we can export Moodle data to other platforms and also use it in another way, ingesting VIVO or accessing the VIVO SparkQL through Moodle. Can you? So, for example, the Autoritas tool is developed, and it is possible to integrate SCOS files, flat files, even Cosmos can be integrated in Autoritas, and it can be used as a platform with some web services where you can get all the authority systems. VIVO is central to the practical development because it integrates a lot of information from the repository, from Moodle in it. And I guess Carlos will tell more about this integration in Moodle. So, still, there are a lot of technical implementations to be realized to get the whole model worked out. Also, I think we have to look also how are we going to bring that to the universities in the end. We worked on the models for a long time, and so the organizational implementation is still a challenge. And as also yesterday was discussed, how are the users in the end going to work with it? These are things that still is on our list of to-dos. So, what we see anyway, that to integrate information, we have to look at the specific formats. And to look at the main common elements, and to define people, organization, keywords with unique identifiers. ORCID, GRID, RAW, Cuban IDs, are all relevant. Controlled vocabularies are available and are integrated. And so it is important to create standardized metadata in the end, and also to create services that in the end teachers and students, for example, will use the e-learning environment, and when they need something out of the library, they will automatically find it related to the topics that are proposed. When they need information about the professor who is doing research and about the topic, they will find it automatically from their e-learning platform. But in that way, it is important to have standardized metadata and services. Okay, I think this is a little bit the context that the theory anyway of the project.
Thank you very much to Marc, because this is really, as we did yesterday at the beginning, a presentation to give an overview, as we said, a big picture of the topic we are working today. The same introduction can be used for tomorrow's session, okay? Because it will be also related with interoperability. And as Marc explained, we are still working in different solutions at different levels, and we still have a lot to do, okay? Not only in our project that we will be ending next August, but when we deliver our proposal to the ministry, we are also going to include in that proposal all the next steps that have to be taken to really be able to go into a real interoperable solution for research and education in the higher education sector in Cuba. Then we can go for the second part, Manuel and Lorena. Okay, if you can share the presentation with Marc, then we can continue, and later on we will go with the presentation of the VIVO part. It will be Amed and who else? Okay, and Carlos. Okay, that's good. And you will be then concrete samples of the reference model. Marc did some comments during his presentation. Okay.
Okay, good morning for everyone. My name is Manuel Osvaldo from UCLV, and now I'm going to present how we develop the interoperability in our digital ecosystem in our university. Will be a short presentation, and after me, Amed, Leiva, Mederos will present some real examples and how we make possible the interoperability between the platform that we are using at UCLV. As you saw in the last presentation, the digital ecosystem defined by the ELINF project, three levels or three. The first level is about learning and research system, the second level about information management, and the last one about authority control. We design our platform and our ecosystem based on that, and also following the policies about open science and open education and all the project concession about these things. In the learning and research level, at UCLV right now are working two Moodle platforms, one for undergraduate students and the other one for postgraduate learning, course and master degree, national and international programs. The MOOCs that we have developed for example, for open science, is in EVISA is the Moodle for postgraduate and what normally we call it a Moodle in the virtual campus is the platform for internal undergraduate students. And our quiz, our VIVO, that we call it Sistema de Información y Difusión de la Información, is the quiz that we are beginning right now at UCLV after some tasted that we will with that platform. In the information management level, at mainly at library level, we are using two DSpace, one for the digital repository at UCLV that have been working since 6 years ago. It's one of the biggest in Cuba. It's one of the 5 repositories of our product network. And VIDA is the digital library from UCLV. It's not shared internationally. It's only for Cuban environment because we store in that digital library some books that we have not the right to share internationally. And in the authority control level, right now we are running that with VIVO platform, and we are waiting to start our test with a CEIBA platform that is developed with a partner project also from BRIC, the project CEIBA from Universidad of Pinar del Rio. VIVO and CEIBA are two platforms that right now we are not tested, so we have to wait until all the development of this platform is completely to start the taste to define in a real context the real interoperability between Rero, Leiva, and the space and VIVO. Now, Dr. Amed is going to present some videos with the real experience of UCLV. There is a slide with the characteristics of the interoperability of each platform. So, I mean, how is possible that this platform can be interoperable between them? And now, Marc, can you share the videos? It's the presentation of Amed. Yes, you have to go out of the presentation. No. No. Sorry.
This actually runs here. It's in okay. Okay, sharing
Desde el punto 4.
which one? Where? Manuel Osvaldo
Right.
It's the large file. It's the golden. Yes. Okay.
Osvaldo need go out of the meeting. Have a meeting and in order. Yes, Osvaldo have a meeting now. I can explain the interoperability with external resource with the space. In this video, we can see the import data or metadata for external resource. For example, my name is Cielo. I select my contributions and code, display the metadata set, number, and put in the collection of journal of my university. Indexation, abstract, license, rights. Put the file. Put the file. And submit the PDF. When I finish my submission, I put the quality control in the item. Creations, personal author, save. This is use the LDAP information and transform the data of LDAP in a person entity. Okay, now VIVO 1 and VIVO 2. This is yes, it's good. We can see the use the external source for authority control in topics. Yes. A concept by our work system or Libraries Congress subject hearing. This is external resource for authority control. Select the topic, check. and put in the profile. Okay, finish. This is an example of interoperability in the environment of institutional information systems in this context. Thank you. People is by LDAP. People too is okay, no problem. It's the same. It's a connection by ORCID. Okay. This is put the ORCID information and retrieve the information of the publication of the research. Now I finish. Thank you.
Gracias. Let's go then with the part of a presentation of the, yes, with the presentation of the interoperability. Mira, espérate, déjala aquí ahora, para que no interfiera con el, incluso aquella bueno, después los correos para que no se caiga. Esa por la otra hora para ¿El qué? Okay, let's go with another example. In this case, related with the Moodle platform. It's also another example of the work done in relation with interoperability. Okay. No te sigas quitando más ropa. Dejaste ahí nomás. Yeah.
Again here. We present the interoperability between Moodle and VIVO develops. Marc, through the development of models and functionalities and a variety of platforms such as Moodle, Space, and VIVO, ELINF is providing a framework of software solution of your university aimed at explaining the possibility of cooperation between researchers, teachers, and students across the country that may be also used by other higher education institutions worldwide. This is done according to the open science and education policies in Cuba. The platform's VIVO is member supporter of an open source software and an ontology for representing scholarship. VIVO supports scholarly activity and encourages research discovery, expert finding, network analysis, and assessment of research impact. Moodle is a system for learning and environment, and the interoperability is the capacity of one or more systems of exchange data or semantic information.
Okay, from this slide, go to the previous slide, please, Marc. Yeah. At the end, there is a quote, and it says, platform ready to achieve interoperability can be defined as a system providing mechanism to expose, fetch, or interchange data with other systems. So, next slide, please. VIVO is already featured with a very good SparkQL endpoint, and so it can expose its information in a very good way. Also for retrieving metadata or information for other platforms, VIVO has several ways for doing that. Moodle, on the other hand, although has a very rich API with a lot of functions, it lacks of certain functions that was needed in order to achieve the interoperability. Thankfully, Moodle has the possibility of being improved by the development of plugins, which are extensions to its features. So we took this possibility and we made some develops and also scripts in order to provide Moodle with the mechanism, as was previously quoted, to provide Moodle with the mechanism to expose and retrieve metadata from other platforms. So next slide. So as Marc was explaining on his presentation, it is needed that all platforms should have a persistent identifier, a unified identifier that must be the same, and it will be the key for communicating. So for these developments, we were using ORCID. However, as I mentioned at the end, all these developments can be easily adapted to use another ID. But so far, we are working over ORCID. So next slide. It takes us to the first need that we found when we start this road for having this goal of achieving interoperability. When we found a way of, Moodle doesn't have an ORCID field for the profile of the teacher, because that's the function of Moodle. Teachers and courses are the individuals in this platform. So we had to find a way of introduce this field. Moodle has the possibility of create custom profile fields, but if we create an ORCID field, it doesn't have a validation. Moodle has his structure, his format, so we have to create this first develop, which is the ORCID custom profile file type. And fortunately, we were in close exchange with the community of Moodle. This plugin is already an official plugin in the Moodle official plugin repository, and also is available at GitHub as all our developments, because this is about open software, right? So next slide. These are two screen captures. There you have is the teacher enter a wrong identifier, it will get a warning, an error that says that he has to fix something there, and it is using a regular expression validation, which is a very good way of, well, it's the best way of validating a string in programming. Here you can have how it looks the profile of the teacher. Once the ORCID is correctly set, you will get the ORCID identifier. That's a link to his ORCID profile on the ORCID platform. Next slide, please. So here I have a video. I think it would be best if we show the examples at the end, because our 4 examples, in order to don't be changing the output of the presentation. So let's go to the next develop. This is the report VIVO, which is a plugin that extends the API. As I mentioned, Moodle has a really huge core of functions in the API. So you can do a lot of tasks in Moodle just by using the REST API. In fact, the application, Moodle has an application, mobile application. It is based on the API of Moodle. But we didn't find a way of interacting with the API by using the unified identifier. So we have to extend the API, and that's why we developed this plugin that extends by the API, and we can make requests about the information about the profile of the teacher, and also the courses related to this teacher. That's in fact what is the interest of VIVO and other platforms that make requests. It's available on GitHub, and it's open for anyone who wants to improve the code or fork it. Okay. So currently, it has 3 functions. The first one is what I consider the most important function is report get courses by custom field, because you get the ORCID or any other ID that you define on Moodle, and it will return the courses related to the profile of the owner of that ID. You can also retrieve information about the profile of the user with the second function. And the first one is not so useful, but it's used internally in the 2 first. So the first one and the second one both need parameters, and there you have an example, a custom field name and a custom field value. In this case, the name is ORCID, and the value is a real ORCID. And the first one, as I said, is the main purpose of this plugin, since it allows the return of an output, which can be an JSON or an XML that can be used for an external platform. Okay. At the left, you have an example of the function. The structure of the function is web service functions. WS is web service function. You put the name of the function you need. The custom file name, the value. You can define if you want it in a JSON format or XML format. And at the end, you have a token, which is a security token that it grants the security of this plugin. It could be a leak of security if you want it. At the right, you have a sample of the output, the courses, the title, the faculty which this course belongs, start date, end date, and this could be increased as it would be needed. If, for example, if people community ask us to show more information, it will be easily added to the output. Okay. This is the second video, but we will try to show all the examples at the end. So in this case, This developed, as the previous developed, both are with the intention of showing the data inside Moodle, of presenting the information from Moodle. And the first one was using the API. We also are giving another possibility. This time is by generating an RDF file, an ontology. We do that by the use of a script. It's a small script which is done on Python. The fact that it's developed on Python make the script very light, it doesn't require too much resources from the host. And it's very easy to deploy because Python is a multi-platform. It can be deployed in any platform, wherever the server uses, Windows or Linux, mostly Linux. And the source code can be found on GitHub. There you have a print screen, a capture of the screen of the script running. It's a real run of the script in our university. We have close to 25,000 users, and it runs in a few seconds. I mean, maybe 20 seconds. Yeah. So that's the slide. The RDF file, this is a capture of an online ontology viewer, and it's showing the file generated. And maybe it's not so, maybe the video you can see better that at the left you have the individual courses, at the right you have the teachers. Between them, the relationship is teacher in or is taught by the teacher who is teaching the course. The relation in both directions of the individuals. So next slide, please. Here again with another online ontology viewer. And here we can list the individuals, and we can those inside. By clicking, you can find that the ontology works and it's functional. Okay. And there we have the video. Okay. To this point, there are three develops. The first one is for introducing the ORCID, which is going to be a link between the platforms. And the two we have so far presented are for exposing the information in Moodle. This one is the last one, and it's an extension, a plugin for retrieving information. Although this plugin has been developed for VIVO, it can be easily adequate or adapted to retrieve information from any platform that uses a SparkQL endpoint. It's available on GitHub as all our developers. Okay. Of course, this plugin has settings, a place where you can define the SparkQL endpoint. You have to define a user and password, which is the authentication way that uses the SparkQL in VIVO. Okay. And then you have, initially, this is the information we are retrieving from VIVO. This is done live, I mean it's dynamically done. Once you click on the profile of a teacher, you get the information that Moodle usually gives you, but also there you have another section with the name research, and it takes from VIVO the academic category of the teacher, the scientist category of the researcher, the research areas of this researcher, and also by exchanging information with the ORCID, it generates a link to the individual in the VIVO platform. So if you need, you want to have more information about this person, you can just click on that, and you get the whole profile, but in the VIVO platform. So that's it. That's the video. And that's the end of the presentation. Let's show you the videos of the samples.
Yeah, if you could mute your videos for me to go further and make it faster. Okay. Zero 1, 0 2, yeah. Mute, please. Yes. Okay.
So this one is the presentation of the ORCID. So this is a real teacher in our university, Rafael. If we click on the profile, we'll get the information, and here we have the ORCID. The ORCID is presented with a link, the real link to the ORCID profile, but in the ORCID website. I will move forward because in the video I am explaining that the internet wasn't too fast. It's loading the rest of the page. Yeah, not too much. It takes you to the profile of the user. So here we'll show how it works, the validation. If you click on edit profile, you will have a section at the end, interoperability. And then you have the ORCID. You can define other IDs here, but I will do a change. I just put the W, which is wrong. You get a validation error. And until you fix it, you won't be able to save the profile. So this plugin is available at the ORCID official, at the Moodle official repository for being downloaded and installed. Second here. Yeah. You should have use another player, I think. Yeah. Just hang it. Mute. Mute the video. Mute the video. It's muted. Okay. This is the report view. Okay. This is the slide previously to the video presentation that you have the query sample. I paste the query on the notebook, text document, and here I will fill the values, ORCID value. I will go further because what I do that is typing. Okay, that's too much. The ORCID, the custom field value will be of this researcher. I, for example, copy the ORCID, and I paste it here in the value. And for the Moodle web service REST format will be JSON. If there is missing the token, so we'll go further. And this must be done by the administrator of the platform. Site administration, web service, it can be generated a security token for a user. So its recommendation is to create a user for this exchange of information and to provide this user with the permissions and then generate a token. This is documented in the Moodle official website, how to generate a security token for a user. So I copy the query, paste it on the browser, and there you have it. That's the response from the Moodle. There you have the JSON with all the courses related to this researcher. Basically, this is what the plugin does and expose the information about the courses in a JSON format by using the ORCID as the unique identifier. Sorry. Next speaker. Maybe you should go to the last one. That's just generate the. Yeah. Okay. So we are short of time, so I will just show the, and this video I just showed, you can find it on GitHub. Are two files, two main files, the configuration and the script, and it can be easily deployed. This is the result of the RDF file. And I show you here the same, when you upload it to an online viewer, that's the result. This is the graph. And this is web protege, Stanford, and then you get access to the individuals in the ontology. Okay, and let's go to the last video. Okay, this is this video will show us Moodle when retrieving information from Moodle and retrieving information from VIVO. It's on GitHub. You can download the source code there of the plugin. So here I'm showing the settings of the plugin. It's located on local plugins. Get from VIVO settings. And then you can define the endpoint of a SparkQL, the user, and the password. And here I go to the profile of the user. We always pick Rafael because he's a well-known researcher of our university. And there you have at the end this section with all the information that I previously showed in the slide. So here we are taking it live from VIVO. At the end you have the link, and this link is generated by Moodle and VIVO by using the ORCID as a link. That you will have the profile of the user on VIVO. Okay, so that's those are the samples.
Okay, thank you very much to Carlos. Then Marc, you can introduce the panel.
Thank you. And Amed will show
Carlos, Manuel, and Amed to show all these results, which are still on a technical level. That's true, but it shows how here the people have worked on to try to connect different platforms. In the first place, between Moodle and VIVO, with the main platforms used by the universities. So I would also I would ask our expert panel to join us. Benoit.
Yes, now you can move the share. This one.
Yes, yes.
Where it will be easier for them.
You are our local expert. That is very important. Okay. So, we had a long and deep presentation of what has been done, sure in the last years now, because, we had over the years a lot of change in the group of developers. That's I think the realizations of the last 2 years, in fact, what we have seen here. Yes, we have here an expert panel. I will start with Rafael. Rafael has worked a lot on the SEDA project. He's from Pinar del Rio. We have Egbert Smet from Antwerp University, Benoit from UCLouvain in Belgium, Anna Cardoso from ORCID, Valentina from CGIAR, and Imma Subirats from FAO from the United Nations. So, yes, my question is simple, like yesterday. A little bit, what is your impression, what is your reaction on what you have heard as presentations here? What are your suggestions? Also, sorry, now I'm mixing. With your suggestion to the community of ELINF, also at the moment, and where to go in the future. It's rather simple. Maybe if you want to start, who wants to start? We are today with yesterday it was only one man who could say ladies first, but today it's not working. I think it's on the man to start. Okay. You. And I will also give you the microphone.
Yes, good morning. I learned a lot. That is my first reaction, because in the ELINF project we have been working as more or less separate teams, one on VIVO, one on DSpace, one on, like in my case, ABCD, one on Moodle. And as an ABCD or library automation expert, I was not that much aware of the concrete activities of my colleagues. And I learned today, mainly from the presentations, how they are actually doing it. And then I say, okay, nice, it even works, which is always nice. If you do a demo, it works indeed. But I think we are from the library scene, and that is the one I'm trying to represent here in this panel, together with my colleague Benoit, I guess, later on. In the library scene, in the world of libraries, we have a big problem, because the universal of our, just one example, authors, is hardly limited. We cannot limit, we don't know what is the universal population of our reality. We don't have something like ORCID. I'm not sure, but I don't think Shakespeare was registered in ORCID. I'm asking the expert here, Thomas de Aquino, do we have his ORCID in the system? And we need all those names, historical mostly, to be accessible somewhere if we also want to do authority control in the library system. The same goes for organizations. The whole world can publish. So, and the whole world has published in the past. So again, the historical dimension makes it very difficult in library systems to refer to known authorities. And then we have the even trickier problem of the topics, the keywords, where in library systems different keywords are being used. In many cases it's the one from the American National Library, so the Library of Congress, but with a very specific focus on American topics. If you look in the section of history, you will find a lot of American history topics which are not relevant to, for instance, my African projects. On the other hand, my African projects don't have all those detailed topics in an official thesaurus or ontology, whatever you call it. So in the library systems, interoperability, we have this specific problem. Technically, this is not a big problem. What I saw my colleagues did for VIVO, for Moodle, for DSpace, to build queries, we can easily do that with our library software as well. That's not a real challenge. So I'm trying to present why from the library part we didn't see any real results here in this presentation or in this series of presentations. We face additional challenges. Then, if I may give another second remark reacting to what I learned today, we saw some nice examples mainly from UCLV. So my question is, of course, what about the other universities? Are they going to adopt? Is that hopefully the plan of the ELINF project? Are they going to do the same to make their own local but different systems interoperable? Then our last question, in fact, I'm hoping that my neighbor here can reply to that, back to the library systems scene. Since we have proposed to move to another software which they use, Rero, what about interoperability? I hope I can also learn something about that. Are you actually using interoperability mechanisms in the library system? Is that part of this Revero software? We would like to know, and then how do you cope with the problems I mentioned earlier on of not having a defined universal. The whole world is our universal, and that is difficult to capture into authority systems. So far, some few reactions, and if you need something, Marc, for the discussions later on, I can only invite my colleagues there to reflect on the same topics. Do they see solutions for this? And mostly I'm interested to know, are the other universities keen and ready to also start using those tools? Thank you.
To answer the first point you have mentioned about the source of authorities, I think, and we've seen that in the slides, the Marc slides, it depends on the context, because you have, as you said, you don't have only one universal source. You have ORCID for research, to identify people for research and for research mainly. So it's people alive today. But for historical author like Shakespeare, we use as authority, we use VIAF as a source. So VIAF and other sources like the National Catalogue of National Authorities of the National Library of Germany and the National Library of France, I guess. And there is a reconciliation process with VIAF and the other source to clearly identify authors. So we have a lot of authorities standardized in Revero, but I think, yeah, it depends on the context. We have also an institutional repository, and we use ORCID for the authors. It's also linked with our LDAP server of the institution. But one point I would like to mention is the problem of, because we talk about interoperability and data exchange between applications and platforms. I think one point we have to take care about is the granularity of information, because you use different systems, and each system has its own context, like you mentioned, but some platform used by default, natively a Dublin core format. Others use linked data format in JSON, and maybe other systems use a Marc XML metadata format. So I think even if you use standards, you always need to do mappings and crosswalk between systems. And like we said yesterday, you always need a long-term vision to do that, and people who understand and people can maintain that in the long term. Because if you one of your platform has let's say some change in underlying, you need somebody to change, to do a mapping change in for the crosswalk. As an example, let's say you use DSpace version 5 or 6, and I know that there was some major change in the DSpace 7, and if you have a crosswalk with other application, it can ask some adaptation to reflect the change in DSpace. But to come back to the granularity of information, for us it has always been a big question, and it's because we have never used a system where the native format was Dublin Core. We have always used metadata with more granularity. So for the institutional repository today, we use Fedora Commons, which originally was developed by Cornell University, and we have chosen the Marc XML format to describe a publication and even to describe technical metadata about electronic document and even for preservation metadata. And I think it's very important to keep a huge granularity, because and I will finish with that. With a more granularity, you can provide more services, even to retrieve correctly your information, your records, to provide more filtering and faceting information. So yeah, that's.
So for you, is it a sort? Because we also have to think about.
My question is, if I have to put if I can ask something, a question about metadata, say how to manage that in the long term with such diversity in metadata formats and the maintenance on the long term.
Okay, but that's something for but quality of metadata is surely quality and granularity is important, and we can bring that to the group here for discussion. For you, it's the relation to the external information, because yes, it's clear internal information is much more manageable, and that's also the reason why it has the priority. But how to deal with that? That's surely another question. Rafael, before
I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue here. I asked for permission to go first.
Okay.
So I agree with Egbert about seeing the system, the platform. It was really great. So I'm happy that we were able to see something.
The streaming. That's the signal. Yes. Sorry to interrupt.
Si quieres para acá, hacemos más reflexivo.
No, it's okay.
Lo perdimos. Okay, so I was saying that thank you for the presentations. It was really great to see the system and platform working. And very quickly also to answer the ORCID IDs, our main goal is disambiguation. It's not really to use as an authority control. It's for live people and to improve their digital identity, and also to use it as a persistent identifier. So what I wanted to say is one of the components of this ecosystem of open science, and I'm going to introduce that today it is also known or is starting to get called as open scholarship, and that's also because the terminology want to get more, to be more inclusive. As you were saying yesterday, Egbert, we need to go beyond the open science itself. So again, so one of these components that we can see in these Foster taxonomy charts or the UNESCO charts of open science is the open tools, so the open infrastructure, and there is where you will find as one of the main pillars the persistent identifiers, or better known as PIDs. So the persistent identifiers will be the glue of these interoperability, and which will make this interoperability a reality. So you were talking about data or metadata. So if you really want to make your data to be interoperable, to be fair, as findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, you need to use persistent identifiers. You need to use, of course, protocols, standards. We were talking a little bit about that yesterday, and for that verification, that you will need to use persistent identifiers, not only for people as ORCID, but also for affiliations. You talk about ROR, the use of ROR grid for things like the DOIs, etc. And the idea is that these persistent identifiers are open, are interoperable among them, and make these connections. I'm going to say it's all about connections. And these connections, there's a good example of this with the Freya project, that it's the PID graph that connects people with their contributions, with their fundings, with their projects, etc. So I have lots of comments here, but stop me if I'm too long. So yeah, so important also to include not only the results but the processes. We were also saying this a little bit yesterday, and therefore you should find the right tool for that, that includes not only the results but the whole workflow of the processes. You also mentioned, Marc, the unique identifiers, the use of unique identifiers that need to get included in the data. That's quite good. One thing I was not expecting was to see ORCID in Moodle, because I haven't really seen that kind of integration. Usually ORCID is used in IRs, in institutional repositories, in funding system, submission systems, but not in educational platforms. So I was talking with Amed and saying this is a great use case, and maybe from ORCID we can also promote. I would love to see more about how that is being used, and yes, so that's good, and something I was not expecting to see. I would love to see more being done with your repositories. I really didn't saw the integration with DSpace. There's a great integration with ORCID and DSpace, especially in the version 7, which have this synchronization in both parts. So everything that you have in your repository, you can get it in the ORCID records of your researchers, and the other way around. So I didn't really saw that, and it would be lovely that you can integrate in DSpace. Same with VIVO. Small comments, as I was saying to Amed, the logo, maybe the use of the logo, so any researcher or user, the contributor that is looking into that can see that it's the ORCID ID. And what else? So yeah, that's really it. So for the question, maybe so yesterday I only saw really ORCID in Grace Lee's presentation that you took to your community about ORCID. I was saying yesterday, integrations are key for to get to the results, but also sensibilization, communication to the community. So one of my questions is, what are you doing at your university to get to this point of communicating what you are doing to your community? What other identifiers are you using in for make this interoperability a reality? And yeah, so that's.
Your topic is about identifiers.
Yes.
Having to see what identifiers.
To see what identifiers are used. So we have granularity, we have the international information, the traditional library information, and then about a question about identifiers. Right? What is the basis that can be used here in Cuba to identify people, organizations, topics, other aspects?
Yeah, beyond that, also, if they are communicating this to their communities, what they are doing.
Yes.
Project.
So simply to what is the proposal? What are the ideas about that? Okay.
Rafael, or I will start? Okay.
Or Rafael,
If you want to link now.
So, we are here talking about interoperability and open science and open education in the context of a project. And what I think is that I came from the development community. I was basically a developer. And the problem with interoperability, as we are saying here, is the agreement between the different parts. But the problem that I see here in Cuba is what maybe the project ELINF can propose a sort of organization, a permanent organization, a panel. I don't know the legal parts of that. I know that here in Cuba it's difficult to do that sort of things, but maybe we need something like that, a permanent panel or organization or experts panel or something like that to promote or define what are the identifiers, the standards that we need to use, and evaluate in the different institutions, because we have the Ministry of Higher Education, we have the Ministry of Science and Technology, we have the Ministry of Public Health, and everybody needs to get an agreement. Maybe that panel is not a government panel, it's a scientific panel or something like that.
Maybe identifiers and authority systems, it could be a good topic to see how to implement that here, what sort of organization and how you see that organization can be in addition to what you propose. Okay, no, that's good.
Hi. So thank you very much for the presentation. It's very informative and very solid approach. So I come from CGIAR, which is an agricultural innovation network, and has many centers, and more than 9,000 researchers and staff. They produce every day publication, they publish the data, and so the topic of interoperability and making all the output that are produced accessible, and open, it's a very important point. And so we also deal with the challenges of using thesaurus, having ontologies, having standards, having a common way to describe the product. And we have also different repository. Different centers use DSpace, other use other system like also Dataverse for all the part of the data. So it's really a challenge sometimes when we have to pull together all this data and to show to the donor what we have produced, to make all these systems talk together to each other. So it's really a challenge. Maybe we don't have the element of education in our system. It's more the part of data and information and knowledge management. And maybe we have a component where we have also to show to the donor, because CGIAR is a publicly funded organization, what we have been doing, and also the compliance on open access and open data policy. So for CGIAR is very important. The topic of interoperability is very important because there is at some point we need to pool all these data together, and we have elaborated during the years a sort of result dashboard where we can show how many of the product that has been produced in research are open, how many are indexed in the Web of Science, for example. And we just recently introduced FAIR scores that are based on the metadata available in our DSpace repositories. So we didn't want to create further metadata fields, but to basically calculate some scores based on criteria that we had already. And so, and we also didn't want to put more burden on the researcher and the staff and the librarians and the repository managers. So we created a simple FAIR score. For example, for findability, we added the ORCID ID. So we say at least one of the authors need to have an ORCID ID to improve the score. And for interoperability, we had two simple criteria. One is the use of a thesaurus, and in our case is AgriVoc, a thesaurus that is led by FAO, and I'm sure that Imma will talk more about that. And also the second criteria, we want to ask researcher if they can link to the resource that they are reporting any other metadata or data. For example, we want to know if a report is linked to a data set. So we have a specific field in our DSpace that says, can you link to another ENDO or to another DOI? And we created a system of scores, so it's a challenge from one side, but it's also like a reward. So the researcher, when they input their information in the repository, they get a score, and they can check the score and improve. So go back and add more keywords or link to other data. And that has helped us also to show to donor that we are improving on this aspect. And I mentioned the use of thesauri, and particularly CGIAR has created a collaboration with FAO over the years that has been formalized a couple of years ago. And so all our repository use AgriVoc, and through this collaboration we are not just pushing researchers to use AgriVoc, but also through a task group, our researcher also add keywords, so add new concept to the thesauri, and that kind of feeds in a kind of a virtuous cycle, the system. And then another point that I wanted to mention, and I already touched on the aspect of the donor policies and of the partner policies that we CGIAR need to be complied to. That also. We are very, very interested in using standard and harmonized data, and also the example of ORCID, I think it's very important because we also do a little bit of bibliometric, or we measure the quality of science of the product that has been produced. And for example, with the ORCID, we have the full name of the author that sometimes is not present on journal article. We have just like the first name, only the first letter, and so through the ORCID we can have the full name, and we can even run sort of like gender API, so prediction about the gender, and we can also make a statistic about how many female researchers have contributed to the specific project, and also the affiliation is very important to see the partnership that has been created over time, or also the collaboration north-south or north-north or south-south. So just a few kind of food for thought, and and I think I will finish here my comments and pass on to Imma. Thank you.
So, simply, what sort of question do you propose to the discussion panel?
Yeah, so I think, for example, have you thought about having this FAIR score is something that could appeal to your organization, to your university, and also, do you think it's very important to for monitoring the how well resource output are produced. If you find interesting to having, for example, result dashboard that can show how fair are your information product.
Okay, I will be very short. My 2 cents. I'm very glad to see such amount of new elements in this project. I was in Hasselt, I think it was years ago. I met some of you there, for sure. And it's a pleasure to see that things have evolved to the point where there is this event today. So my 2 cents, just I'm not working in an institution that is a research organization. I'm not working in academia. I work in the UN, which is a completely different world. From this perspective, I could say that metadata, to produce metadata is very expensive. So it's very important to understand what needs to be described before deciding or taking some decisions about what identifiers we want, what metadata we want, what we want to describe, etc., etc. But at the same time, from my experience with the programs I'm managing, it's also very important to take care of the content. So what content are you adding to this metadata in order to make sure that this content is meaningful to everybody? Because I've seen such amounts of different things that you wouldn't believe. So titles that don't have the article in front of, I don't know, if it starts with a D, doesn't have. Authors that are introduced very wrongly, probably with systems like what is being discussed here. This will be worldwide resolved. But this was the reason why Marc was so efficient at a certain point, because Marc is a mixture between metadata format and content guidelines. And this is why it became so popular as well. Now we are using metadata formats without content guidelines, and this is creating quite a lot of chaos. The other thing that I want simply to mention is the multilinguality aspect, and is related to the description of the documents. It's very important to take into account as well what kind of approach you want to take in terms of multilinguality, because it's very different, particularly when we talk about authority files or vocabularies. For instance, AgriVoc is translated to 42 languages, so we are providing a tool that can be really based on FAIR data principles in terms of vocabularies that can be understood by most of the world. But when you describe or you can create a vocabulary or you are using a vocabulary that is monolingual or bilingual, you have to take into account, and this probably is more for tomorrow, that when you are going to expose the data, probably this is going to be understood by certain parts of the world. This is the reason as well why ESCOs and everything is so important. And there is something that was mentioned here that is very important as well, is the homonymia. In the context of AgroVoc, we are now, maybe tomorrow we can discuss that, we are evolving to not to have only vocabulary, but to have an umbrella for a set of vocabularies that are going to be able to have the same label for the same concept, just that the definitions will have to be added to make sure that it is meaningful. This is also something that I would like to add to some of the comments that were on the table in terms of metadata. So when we create vocabularies, we should be sure that we are not adding only labels. We should add definitions, we should add additional information that helps people to understand what you are describing exactly, or what you want to mean in this particular record. And besides that, I would say congratulations, guys. Congratulations. I don't have any particular question, except that whether you have thought about the multilinguality aspect. I presume that at a certain point you have. And yeah.
I think the language issue of authority systems and vocabularies is something also what can be done in the Cuban context, where in the end Spanish is predominant. So most of the existing vocabularies are not multilingual. What can be done on that? What is the approach? That's surely something that can be discussed in the group.
Just my last comment. It's true that you are talking about a world that is multidisciplinary here. I'm coming from a monodisciplinary. In my world, multilinguality, which is agricultural sciences, is the must. For health sciences, is English. You can publish or whatever, but it's English. And in certain other sciences, there are certain languages that are the most important ones, and therefore, to take into consideration metadata in different languages is also important.
I think this is the discussion point. I'm not going further on it, but I think we have different questions from about what with traditional existing metadata surely which is in the library world. Another question specifically about the quality and the granularity of metadata. In fact, you mentioned that too. And how to manage that and how to make it consistent on the long term, for example. About identifiers. I will try to write it down while you have coffee. The identifiers, what are the identifiers in Cuba? Surely you heard about ORCID, but also about assets and such things like that. Not only about people, organizations, and topics, but maybe even further, if there is a vision on that. About the qualification, the fair qualification, you talked about the metadata, how fair is it, and it's a little bit related to quality as well. And then the multilingual approach, what is relevant in the Cuban context. Spanish in the first place, but in some disciplines, of course, you will have English and so on. Egbert, quickly.
Sorry, but I have a second question, which is very concrete. How ready are the other Cuban universities in adopting tools developed by UCLV? Okay. I think that's concrete and important for the network.
And of course, I forgot Rafael's how to organize the whole system of of authority systems of quality control in the end. Huh? Hmm? That's, I will try to put it down. Hmm? Okay. So, it's coffee time. Before the coffee is cold, I propose that you go there.